Maggie Lena Walker, a name that resonates with the echoes of resilience, innovation, and social justice, stands as a monumental figure in American history. Born on July 15, 1864, in Richmond, Virginia, Walker emerged from the shadows of the post-Civil War era, a time when African Americans were grappling with the remnants of slavery and the harsh realities of systemic racism. Against all odds, she would break social protocols and become a successful African American entrepreneur and civic leader. She would further break traditional gender and discriminatory laws by becoming the first Black woman to establish and become president of a bank in the United States, the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank in Richmond. The life and legacy of Maggie Lena Walker are not merely a chronicle of personal achievements. They represent a broader narrative of the African American struggle for economic empowerment, civil rights, and community upliftment. In this video, we will be examining the life and legacy of Maggie Lena Walker. Before we go on, do not forget to support our efforts by hitting that like button before you. Share with your family and friends to keep spreading our eye-opening Black narrative, and kindly subscribe to stay tuned in for more informative stories ahead. Now let's take a walk down the story of the exemplary life lived by the iconic African American Maggie Lena Walker. Walker, born on July 15, 1864, was the daughter of a formerly enslaved mother, Elizabeth Lizzie Draper, and a father, Eccles Cuthbert, who was an Irish-born Confederate soldier and nurse. Draper and Cuthbert were never in a long-term relationship. Thus, after the abolition of slavery, Draper cared for her family by working as a laundress. In 1868, Draper married William Mitchell, but he died prematurely in 1876 in an unsolved murder. After the death of her husband, Lizzie Mitchell raised her children, Maggie and a son, John B., on her own. While her labor as a laundry worker meant autonomy because the work could be done at one's own home and at one's own pace, it was far from lucrative. Lizzie Mitchell often enlisted the help of her young daughter, Maggie. Walker's humble upbringing motivated her to help others. It instilled in her a profound understanding of the challenges faced by African Americans in a society that often marginalized their contributions and aspirations. From an early age, Walker exhibited a keen intellect and a strong sense of purpose, qualities that would later propel her into the forefront of the African American community in Richmond and beyond. Her educational journey began at the historic Richmond Colored Normal School, where she honed her skills and developed a passion for learning. However, Walker's vision extended far beyond the classroom. She understood that education alone was insufficient to combat the economic disparities faced by African Americans. This realization ignited in her an entrepreneurial spirit and led her to explore avenues for economic empowerment. In 1881, as a teenager, Walker joined the Independent Order of St. Luke, IOSL, an organization she would be heavily involved in for the rest of her life. IOSL was an African American fraternal benefit society, which had been founded by Mary Prout in Baltimore in 1867. Like the many other fraternal organizations that proliferated during this time, the order was established as a women's mutual insurance society with a mission to take care of the sick and to aid in burying the dead. Mutual burial societies were a precursor to insurance companies. The order needed a bank, but had few options given segregation. It also had a mission of investing in its community at a time when its members faced significant barriers to banking. The order and the bank were able to invest in their own community by providing its members with financial literacy education, training, and employment, as well as opportunities to bank. Walker would graduate from Richmond Colored Normal School in 1883 and began working as a teacher. However, when she married Armstead Walker in 1886, she was forced to resign her teaching position because married women were prohibited from teaching. Since she could no longer teach, Walker thrust herself into her community work and began climbing the ranks of the IOSL. In 1899, the order elected her as Right-Worthy Grand Secretary, which is the highest leadership position within the national organization. While this was a tremendous accomplishment, Walker assumed the leadership of the organization at the verge of bankruptcy and with a rapidly diminishing membership. Seeing an opportunity where others might have seen catastrophe, Walker seized this chance to rebuild the IOSL, and rebuild she did. Under Walker's leadership, the IOSL would grow in membership, mission, and purpose. In 1899, Walker would become the national leader. The organization had 1,080 members at the time. By 1915, the order had grown to 40,000, and by the mid-1920s, it would grow to over 100,000 with lodges in Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, and Massachusetts. Awesome. Going forward in the year 1903, Walker would make history by becoming the first woman to charter a bank in the United States, known as the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank. This groundbreaking achievement was not merely a personal triumph. It was a beacon of hope for countless African Americans who had been systematically excluded from mainstream financial institutions. The bank provided a safe haven for savings and loans, fostering a sense of financial independence and stability within the African American community. Commendably, Walker's leadership at the bank would be characterized by her unwavering commitment to serving her community, as she implemented policies that prioritized the needs of the underprivileged. Walker was known to have commented thus:
"I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth, but with a laundry basket practically on my head."
And she meant this literally. Being drawn to community service and a sense of advancing the Black race, Walker had a vision to better her community by increasing access to employment, education, and financial instruments such as mortgages and personal loans, affecting positively all areas where segregation prevented Black people from accessing mainstream options. Therefore, through the IOSL, she would not only establish the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank, but would also found the St. Luke Herald, a weekly newspaper, in 1902 to spread the good news of the independent order and attract new members. Between 1904 and 1906, the newspaper would serve as a platform for civil rights advocacy and would support a boycott of the segregated Richmond streetcar system. In 1905, she would further establish the St. Luke Emporium, a department store run by Black employees for the Black community. The focus of these entrepreneurial endeavors was not for individual success, but rather for community advancement. And in running these businesses, Walker employed a workforce made up primarily of Black women in areas that provided higher wages than physically laborious, menial household work. Amazingly, under Walker, Black women worked as stenographers, accountants, journalists, and secretaries. Walker's former secretary, Alice Spindle McSweeney Gilliam, remembered Walker being so strict about time. To Walker, "You had better be at your desk from 10 minutes to 9. Going forward, as the independent order and the bank prospered, the workload increased. Employees would work long hours. One employee told the story of a time when the audit came due. At the conclusion of the audit, one nickel was found to be missing. Walker instructed 2 of her workers to stay until the nickel had been found. After hours of searching, they finally found it at midnight. This goes a long way to show that Walker was quite diligent and values accountability. In addition to long hours, Walker required that workers adhere to a dress code, a white blouse and a long dark skirt, and encouraged them to save 5% of their wages, further showcasing her value for decency and prudence. However, not all workers appreciated these impositions or the heavy workload, and a few would submit complaints to Walker, which she seems to have handled individually. In time, their hard work paid off. The Washington Bee, an African-American newspaper, recognized that the financial success of the IOSL and the bank had a tremendous impact on African Americans in Richmond and beyond. The newspaper even encouraged its readers to join the order or open an account. The combined nickels and pennies that ordinary Black workers deposited at the bank amounted to a lot, totaling about $500,000 by the mid-1920s. Comparing that in 2019, it would be a little over $7 million. However, after an illness in 1928, Walker was forced to use a wheelchair. Though limited in movement, she remained a leader in the Richmond African American community. She fought arduously for women's rights as well. For much of her life, Walker served as board member of the Virginia Industrial School for Girls. Unfortunately, prior to the stock market crash in 1929, Walker noticed a decline in St. Luke's assets. She began considering a merger between St. Luke and the other 2 Black-owned banks in Richmond, Second Street Savings Bank and Commercial Bank and Trust. By 1931, the 3 banks merged to form Consolidated Bank and Trust. Walker would serve as chairperson of the bank's board of directors until her death. As of 2010, when the bank was known as Consolidated Bank and Trust Company, It was the oldest continually African-American operated bank in the United States. Furthermore, Walker was also a staunch advocate for civil rights and social justice. She recognized that economic empowerment was inextricably linked to the fight for equality. As a member of the Independent Order of St. Luke, she used her platform to address issues such as racial discrimination, education, and women's rights. Her activism extended to the national stage, where she became involved with organizations like the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, where she was a co-founder, and served as the vice president of the Richmond chapter of the association, and also organized the first Black Girl Scout troop in the South. Through her work with these organizations, she advocated for civil rights, social justice, and equality for African Americans. Her efforts included organizing protests, participating in marches, and working to raise awareness about issues such as voter suppression, segregation, and economic inequality. Her commitment to activism not only helped to advance the civil rights movement, but also inspired future generations to continue the fight for justice and equality. In addition to her entrepreneurial pursuits to increase economic access, Lena Walker would give her time and money philanthropically to support organizations that sought to better the lives of African Americans, particularly African American women. She helped organize the Richmond Urban League and donated money to countless organizations and causes, including Nannie Helen Burroughs' National Training School for Women and Girls. Walker believed that everyone had the capacity to give, stating,
"There are few of us who can give much, but there are thousands upon thousands who can give little, and the combining of the mites will produce the much so necessary to success."
Indeed, it was the principle of each person contributing a little that led to the success of St. Luke Bank, and later, Consolidated Bank and Trust. Walker's role as the first female African American bank president was remarkable, given the norms and barriers of her time. This is largely because in the early 20th century, banking and finance were male-dominated fields with few opportunities for women, especially women of color, to hold leadership positions during segregation. The bank, as earlier stated, built local economic empowerment by employing primarily African American women to run its operations, and in addition gave a large number of mortgage loans to the Black community, facilitating an increase in home ownership. Going forward, Walker's achievements weren't without challenges. While her successes and that of the Independent Order of St. Luke were extraordinary, particularly given the reactionary social and political environment of that time, the white community and Virginia's state government posed challenges to her vision. After the embezzlement scandal and failure of the United Order of True Reformers Bank in 1910, the Commonwealth of Virginia would mandate that fraternal societies and financial institutions be separate. In compliance, the St. Luke Bank became officially independent of the Independent Order of St. Luke, the St. Luke Emporium, which is the retail arm of Walker's three-part conglomerate that offered African American women opportunities for work and the Black community access to cheaper goods, struggled from its beginnings. As a result of organized opposition from white retailers and reluctance from Black consumers who continued to patronize white businesses, perhaps fearing repercussions if they did not, the Emporium could not make money and was forced to close its doors in 1911. Walker developed diabetes, and because of her failing health and a leg wound that never healed, she would spend the last decade of her life in a wheelchair. Despite the setbacks and oppositions, she would remain undaunted in her pursuit of success and remain steadfast in pioneering schemes geared towards community advancement. Sadly, on December 15, 1934, Walker would be laid to rest from complications due to diabetes. Her house in Richmond, designated a National Historic Site by the National Park Service. In conclusion, the life and legacy of Maggie Lena Walker serve as a powerful testament to the enduring spirit of determination, innovation, and community empowerment. As the first African American woman to charter a bank in the United States, Walker not only broke barriers in a time of profound racial and gender discrimination, but also laid the groundwork for future generations of entrepreneurs and leaders. Her commitment to economic independence, education, and social justice resonates today, reminding us of the importance of advocating for equity and opportunity for all. Also, Walker's legacy is not merely confined to her achievements in banking. It extends to her role as a community organizer and a champion for civil rights, inspiring countless individuals to pursue their dreams and uplift their communities. As we reflect on her remarkable journey, we are encouraged to carry forward her vision of empowerment and inclusivity, ensuring that her contributions continue to inspire and ignite change in our society. That brings us to the end of yet another video segment. Did you happen to learn a thing or two? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. We are always delighted to pick from your thoughts. Support our works also by hitting the thumb button. Share with your families and friends to keep spreading our eye-opening Black narrative, and kindly subscribe to stay tuned in with us. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.